All right, here we are. Cool, welcome back. All right, I'm here with Brian and Isaac.
So,
They are both from YWAM Louisville, and they are living their life on a mission. But I'm going to go ahead and open it up with you guys. Just go ahead and introduce yourself real quick and say a little something about yourself.
all right, my name is Brian. I'm actually originally from Ohio. Moved to Louisville about 3 years ago to join YWAM and been here ever since, loving it.
And my name's Isaac. I'm 21, and I was born and raised in a little small town called Hertford in North Carolina. And I've been in YWAM since 2017.
Okay, cool. So, Brian, go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about what YWAM is and what you do.
Yeah, so YWAM, it's an organization that's focused on reaching the nations through young people. And the founder, I want to say in the 60s or 70s, had a vision of waves crashing onto the continents. And as it hit the continents, young people started running into all of the nations. And so it's really focused on discipling young people and sending them into the nations to share the gospel. And so it starts out with a discipleship training school where you come in for 3 months. And we have speakers teach on like the Father heart of God, the character and nature of God, and different subjects like that. And really, in reality, it's just focused on what a relationship with God looks like. And then after those 3 months, you go on a 2-month overseas outreach. So my school, I actually went to South Africa, and then I came back into another school and went to Vietnam. And so it's a really cool opportunity to come in and learn about God and then actually go into another country and put basically what you learn into practice by sharing that with other people. And so I actually joined staff in September of 2017. So it's been a little over a year now. And so on staff, we have lots of different roles, but I'm actually head of the kitchen right now. And so we cook for all the students, all the staff that come through, which is a really cool opportunity just to serve them. But also on staff, we get to go on an outreach every year. So I just got back from Mexico a few months ago, which was awesome. And yeah, like on all the outreaches, like seeing lots of healings, lots of salvations, which has been really cool.
Nice. Isaac, what do you do at YWAM?
Well, actually, just 2 days ago, I just joined staff.
Seriously?
Yeah,
okay. Have you done a trip with YWAM before?
Yeah. In September 2017, I did my DTS, which is Discipleship Training School.
Okay.
And yeah, it's the same thing like what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I also did my school ministry development. It's the second school that you have to do. And 2 days ago, I just raised all my support to join onto staff. So.
Okay, cool. So that's one of the aspects of being on YWAM's staff and team is you have to go raise your own support.
Yeah.
What is that process and what is that like?
It's hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah. It took me a few months. So there's like a set amount that you're supposed to raise for monthly support in order to be able to come. Basically, just like because if you don't have that much, it's hard to survive.
Yeah.
And so it took me, I want to say about a month just to raise $250 in monthly support.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was scheduled to be coming back on staff in about a week. And I was sitting at $250 a monthly support.
Oh, Lord.
And I tell you what, it makes you trust in God.
So what was the goal that you had to reach?
The goal is 900.
Jeez.
Okay. And so I was quite a ways away.
Yeah.
And then I was just spending some time with the Lord. And he was just like, you need to ask people. Because it's really hard. It takes a lot of humility to go to someone and ask them to support you monthly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can have this view of you have to work for what what you get.
Right.
And so to go to them and say, hey, can you support me every month?
Yeah.
It can be really challenging. But I really learned a lot through that process.
Mhm.
And then after, spending that time with the Lord and he just kind of kicked my butt on it, I actually ended up raising more than what I needed over the next 4 days. So, really in reality, in raising money, God's after your heart. And he can make the money disappear like that if he wanted to. So he's just after your heart and after you to surrender and trust in him. And once you do, that's when you see the finances come in.
Yeah.
So
what causes you to want to enter a life like that? Because there are hundreds of millions of people that would register as a Christian on a census of some kind, but you guys are choosing a path that on paper doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
What pulls you into a situation like that?
I mean, honestly, Jesus.
Yeah.
My plan wasn't to do it, but can I share a little bit about my testament?
Absolutely.
So I mean, I grew up in the church, but it was a lot of religion that I grew up in, and it was really focused on doing good works in order to get to heaven. And when I got into high school, I started to walk away from that because it was one of those things that when you mess up and your faith is based on good works, then there's a lot of shame that comes with that.
Yeah.
And it basically, you feel like you can't live up to that because you can't. And then, as I got into high school, I got into drugs and partying and stuff like that. And I basically walked as far away from God as I possibly could. And then I got to the point of hitting rock bottom. I started out with just smoking marijuana, but then one day I tried heroin, and that was my wake up moment. And I just remember I was outside, and I just cried out to Jesus, and I didn't even know that God can speak to you. I didn't know anything about the Holy Spirit or nothing, but I just cried out to Jesus, and all that I didn't know what it was, but I could just hear it, and he said YWAM.
Yeah.
And it was just through a crazy turn of events, the next day at work, someone was talking about YWAM, and so that's how I ended up actually getting to YWAM Louisville. And I didn't go with the plan of staying in missions my whole life. I went with the plan of doing my discipleship training school and going home and working and making money. And I would say most of the people that come, that's their plan.
Right.
Like Isaac, I don't think he came with a plan of coming back on staff.
No way.
But when I was there, one day the Lord just asked me, he said, what do you want to do in life? And this was about halfway through my discipleship training school. And before that, my answer was always I want to go work. I want to go make money. And I just took a few minutes to think about it. And I was just I want to disciple people and I want to go into the nations. And so from that moment on, I was I want to do missions. It's especially being on staff at YWAM, it's a great opportunity to do both of those things.
Yeah.
I get to disciple the students that come through, and also get to go on an outreach every year, sometimes two. And so it's a great opportunity to do both of those things.
Okay, cool. How about you, man? What pulled you into this situation?
Well, I'll just go back a little bit too and tell a little bit of my story.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So, growing up, I didn't really have a dad. He was in prison, selling drugs and doing drugs and all that kind of stuff. And my mom, she was trying to get away from all that. So that's when I was about 7, my parents got divorced.
Yeah.
And I was a bitter young person. Didn't really talk to a lot of people and kind of isolated myself.
Yeah.
And I was a sophomore in high school and started hanging out with the wrong crowd, started partying, started smoking pot, stuff like that. And, and I've always kind of wanted like that father. I wanted like a father in my life.
Yeah.
And so I knew that my dad also did drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, hey, well, I'm gonna go to my dad's house. Maybe he wanna, do
Yeah.
drugs with me. And then so it just kind of turned into a horrible thing of like, me doing drugs with my dad and like going off partying and this whole time, I was on my worship team in my church, and so I was living this complete double life.
Yeah.
And so yeah, a lot of shame. So I didn't want to have anything to do with God because I didn't want that shame in my heart. I didn't want that shame over me.
Yeah.
So it was 2017.
Yeah.
And she's her name's Kristen, but she's not at YWAM anymore. She left.
Yeah.
But she came to my church because she's from where I used to live.
Yeah.
My hometown, and she said that they needed more men for their discipleship training school.
Yeah.
Which was weird that she said more men, and she also was talking about how there's a worship track that you can do and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, I sound like I love music and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I've always loved music. I'm a musician, but of course I had no interest because I was a drug addict and all that kinds of double life, living horrible. But I would still go to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
And so this was a week. The Sunday that Kristen came to speak at my church, it was a week before the discipleship training school was going to start.
Okay.
And it's a good amount of money to do your discipleship training school. It's not cheap. And
What is it to do your discipleship training?
It's around $3,400.
Does it vary to location?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go out of country, it's a lot more.
Okay. All right.
But it was on a Wednesday morning, and I woke up 2 hours before my alarm went off to go to work, and I heard a voice audible in my room, and it said, "Go to YWAM," and I wasn't even really quite sure what YWAM was because I wasn't really paying attention or anything, so I didn't even really know what YWAM was.
Yeah.
So I kept hearing that voice, and it freaked me out, and I kept I thought I was tripping or something, but I wasn't, man. Like, it was definitely the voice of God, and it was in my room, and the presence was in my room, and I could feel it all over my body, and like it was almost like I was like paralyzed.
Wow.
And at that moment, I knew that I was going to YWAM, and like, I didn't know for sure. I didn't know how I was going to raise the money.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout the day, the Lord said, you need to tell your church the double life that you've been living, because it wouldn't be right for you to ask them for money and they don't know who you really are. And so I went to my church leadership, and told them that I'm basically a drug addict, and that the Lord spoke to me this morning, and He told me this. And I really want to do this, and I know that God wants me to do this. And I was like, would y'all pray about supporting me? And mouths dropped, and they're all just like, what? Like, we have no idea, And like, my mom, she didn't know that I was doing drugs. She was on the leadership team, and she was just like so like hurt, and I could just see it, and I was bawling, tears down my face, telling how I've been living, and But man, like, the pastor at my church was just like, he was like, we'll pay your whole tuition to go to your discipleship training school. And I was like, wow, like, it takes that one little bit of faithfulness to obey God, and He will take it like all the way.
Do you guys feel? Well, I know that you guys feel the significance in your life, but do you guys feel like everybody could have this? And it might not be the exact life that you guys have, but what I try to talk to people with all the time is like, listen, you have some gifts. you have some passions.
Yeah.
If you figure out what those are and you figure out what you want to do and you know how to do it for a higher life, then it's. What's your approach like that with people? Like, do you feel that way?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think I would say God's dreams for you are bigger than yours are for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the story that I think of every time on this topic is if you know Reinhard Bonnke.
I don't.
So he was an evangelist in Africa, and I think through his ministry there ended up being around 70 million salvations from Africa.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it had crazy successful ministry out there. But he started out by handing out those little tracts, that you see lying around places, and he would just walk the streets of Africa, just handing those out. And one day, God spoke to him and said, Reinhard Bonnke, I want to see the nation of Africa washed in the blood of my son. And he said, why me, Lord? And God said, honestly, you weren't my first choice, but everyone else before you said no. And so he said yes.
Wow.
And so just with a simple act of obedience and saying yes, he went from handing out these tracts in South Africa to speaking in front of at events in front of hundreds of thousands of people at a time and seeing over 70 million people get saved. And so I would say everyone can have that. But it's, are you willing to listen to what God wants and has to say, and are you willing to sacrifice what you want in order to have that?
Yeah. Are you guys ever met with skepticism or resistance?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Criticism of any kind?
Yeah.
What's said to you?
The biggest thing in between my secondary school, the School of Ministry Development, and coming back on staff, I was working at my job again, and a lot of people would ask me like the question of like, how is it adjusting back to the real world? And a lot of people look at missions as, oh, like that's just like a part-time thing, and
or they're doing it for Facebook photos.
Yeah, doing it for the cool story, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and they just expect you to come back and get a job and make money again. And even so, my sister-in-law, at first when I told her I'm doing a discipleship training school, she was really excited. My whole family was, because I went from this life of drugs to, okay, I'm going to pursue Jesus. But when I told her I'm coming back for the secondary school, she was kind of excited, but not quite as excited.
Yeah.
And then after that, when I got back, she was telling me how excited she was that I was coming back.
No worries.
And and so then I actually told her I'm going back on staff, and she said, fine, just leave. So she was like, a lot of people have that expectation of, oh, you're going to go for a little bit, pursue Jesus, but then you're going to come back and get a job. And so when you tell them it's full-time, a lot of people just don't understand that, because it's not what's normal to them. Getting a job, working a 9 to 5 is what's normal to most people and to the world. So when you tell them you're going to go do missions for the rest of your life, a lot of people don't understand why.
What about you, man?
Well, I don't know. The criticism I get is from a lot of my family members.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, my sister was so happy, for me doing the discipleship training school. She was happy for me to get out of the life I was in. My mom was, even my dad was. And he's still involved in the stuff I used to be involved in.
You keep in touch with him?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah, I still talk to him. I hang out with him. I just,
cool.
Just don't hang out with him as much,
right.
as I used to.
Yeah.
But I've been leading worship, for a while, and the hardest time for me was between my secondary school and staff, because I went to see my sister in Alabama, and I played. The pastor asked if I could lead worship, for their church, and
Yeah.
my sister was really trying, because she was like, okay, you got $900 a month, and you got $50K a year, because that's what he was offering.
That's true. That's
And
true.
I was like, wow, I can't believe I could make that much doing what I love.
Right.
I love leading worship, I really do.
Mm.
But that's not my heart. My
Yeah.
heart is seeing people to know Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's my overall goal in life, because straight up, blunt, honest with you, there's people going to hell every day.
Mhm.
And it's sad.
Yeah.
It really is sad. And YWAM is, we don't want that.
My pastor said this the other week in one of his sermons. He was talking about, just living your life accordingly, right? And he said that he had a pastor friend that he spoke to that was in another part of the country, told him this sad story. Somebody in his congregation came up to him and he said, hey man, I believe in Jesus, but I've never done anything. I tithe and, I go to church every week. Am I going to hell? And he said, the pastor said, no, but somebody is.
Mm. Yeah. Wow.
And that was one of the things, that hit me in a different way.
Yeah.
Because you think about, if you are a Christian, or if you call yourself a Christian and you measure your life and you talk about yeah, I do believe in Jesus, so I guess I'm going to heaven, that's a prerequisite. That could very well be the case. You could maybe, lead some of your family members to Jesus and stuff like that, and then you kind of call it a day.
Yeah.
But if you aren't using what you have to further the kingdom in a positive way, there will be somebody that could have been affected by you in a positive way like that, but they won't. And you'll never know.
Yeah.
You'll never know that. But I mean, you could be able to sleep with that. That's. I think that message, that mission, is not emphasized in our church enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, talking about any particular pastor or congregation. I think it's the American church all over, and we've tied this message for living a life of comfort instead of living a life for Christ, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the American dream.
Yeah.
I was talking about that with my cousin the other day. I was even asking him, I was like, do you think the American dream pulls us away from God? And he was just 100%. Because on paper, what you're supposed to do, instead of doing this, you're supposed to go to college and get a degree. You're supposed to get a job in that degree. Then when you pay off your student debt, and when you buy a nice house and a nice car, and then you have a family, what you do then is that you go to church on Sundays.
Yeah.
And that's it. Right?
Yeah.
I think that there's going to start to be a shift, because I think with the chaos in our country too, what we're dealing with nowadays, there's a lot of polarizing situations. People are going to start making efforts to cut through the bullcrap, essentially, and they're going to start seeing real people living in a convicted way, and they're not going to be so judgmental about it, because all of a sudden the American dream isn't actually what it's chopped up to be, right?
Yeah.
So, along with that, what places have you guys gone to, or traveled to, essentially?
Yeah. I mean, I've actually when I was on staff, we went across America and even Canada, and we shared at churches and youth groups. And I've also been to Mexico, Vietnam, and South Africa. But yeah.
Okay, cool. What about you? Have you been outside the country before?
Yeah. my first mission trip was to Cyprus.
Okay.
It's a little island in the Mediterranean Sea.
Nice. Is that what country is it belong to?
Well, it's called Cyprus.
Oh, it is
a country, yeah, but it's really, really, really small.
Oh,
You can't see it on like a big map.
I only ask because I was in Sicily for a summer, so I wouldn't. Is it between Sicily and Greece, or is it on the other side of Greece? Or?
Well, like here's Greece, and then Cyprus is like
Okay.
down there.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Okay. So have you been anywhere else?
Yeah, my secondary school, I went to a place called Kyrgyzstan. It's in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
It's one of the stands, Pakistan.
Yeah.
Afghanistan, all of those.
So going to those places, and I always tell people every single time they ask me, I think you should try to travel as much as you possibly can. Initially, y'all's first time outside of the country, if y'all can remember well, what did you guys learn that you just never thought you would learn out there?
Dude, that
Like kind of like where to start.
American people are rude.
it's a wake up call.
Yeah.
One thing, like he said, American people are rude, and also like just like how good we have it here.
Yeah.
And so in South Africa, we were staying in a fairly nice city, and then about a 15-minute walk from there, we were in a slum. And the slums, I mean, they have houses made out of literally, when I say anything they can find, I mean anything they can find. Like tin, wood, plastic, and they literally take it and throw together this small little hut that you might see like a family of 5 staying in. And most of them, they don't have a father around, but most of the fathers in those situations, are on drugs or too drunk to take care of a family. And I mean, you spend a few months in a situation like that, and then you come back to America where people are complaining about they only make $40,000 a year instead of $60,000.
Yeah.
It really shifts your perspective, and
it almost makes you want to reprioritize.
Yeah.
Jeez. So I hear often from YWAMers that people will experience miracles and some pretty divine things happening. What have you guys seen or been through?
Well, I've in my secondary school, we had a worship night at our base in Louisville.
Yeah.
And there was like 3 or 4 healings that night, but one of my friends, Gabby, asked if I could pray for her back, and I've never experienced like Jesus healing through me, but I believe that he could. I completely believed 100%.
Yeah. And
she believed it, and it happened, and her back was completely healed. Her toes, she said her toes were numb because like her back was in so much pain, and like it was just like completely healed 100%. And there was another guy who was colorblind, and his eyes were healed, and he could see color again.
Wow. What about you?
Yeah, that's actually something I'm like super passionate about.
Yeah.
In DTS, that was something like I had never even thought was possible. Like growing up in like the religious place of not knowing even what the Holy Spirit was, and then coming into DTS and hearing that you can pray for someone and they'll actually get healed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the church, you hear like, oh, let's pray for them, and yet no one's really like actually sees it happen.
Right.
And so coming and hearing that you can actually pray for people and they'll get healed, at first I was, very questionable about it. And then I went on outreach in South Africa, and I just had this like crazy encounter with God.
Yeah.
And it was so real, and His presence just came over me. And then I went out and I was walking on the street. And we were talking to 3 homeless people, and 2 of them didn't really speak English, and only one of them did. So we were trying to talk to him, and then God just spoke to me and said back. So at first I was kind of like, I'm not really sure, but I asked him, like, does your back hurt? And the guy that spoke English was like, no. And so I had him ask the others that were there, and the one actually said that he broke his back a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
now hold on, you can keep talking. I'm gonna fix the camera real quick. No worries.
Yeah, so he said a few years ago he broke his back and it never healed properly.
You guys. Yeah.
Because being homeless, he didn't have health care or anything.
Yeah.
And he said he was in a lot of pain, and I prayed for him, and instantly he just started like bending over and straightening up, and he said there's no pain whatsoever. And it's great. I also like experience it a lot in America too.
You experience miracles in America?
I do.
Okay. Now, yeah, so it's not that I'm a skeptic or anything, but I have so many thoughts about experiencing miracles in other parts of the world, and then experiencing miracles here, and then just kind of so here's my life, right? I've never experienced a miracle of like healing or anything like that, inside America or outside of America, right? But I've got a buddy who is working at Southeast, and he was telling me about a trip in Haiti that he went to, and he said that his boss, who is a pastor at Southeast as well, went down there with him, and he said his pastor was invited to go to this part of Haiti where it's just voodoo,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just very desolate and just a very low part of the world. And so he's told me that his boss had told him that when he went there, he witnessed someone sacrificing a goat to a tree. And then he said the man, after he had sacrificed a goat to a tree, convulsed, and then he began to slither up the tree like a snake. There's no middle ground for a story like that. There's not like, are you sure he didn't just fall? Like, there's no explanation for saying something like that, especially with somebody who has that credibility, right?
Yeah.
So for somebody who hasn't experienced it, and for a lot of the audience members who may not have experienced it as well, what's y'all's personal opinion on maybe why we don't see miracles like we used to, or like we heard about, or we've read in Scripture?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes from unbelief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And part of it is also like God isn't after us for what we can do for Him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just after our hearts. Like I was saying, with exactly the same thing with the money.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that God wants to use you. There's a verse that says, "These signs will follow believers. You'll lay your hands on the sick; they will be healed." And I think of Todd White. Not sure you know who he is.
Yeah, that guy is he's something.
He's phenomenal.
He's something else.
Everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
But I heard he was sharing a story about, I think it was like the first 400 some people he prayed for didn't see one person healed. And he just said every day he would wake up and read that verse where it says, "You'll lay your hands on the sick, they will be healed." And he would just believe it. And I think a lot of us, we take our circumstances. See, I've prayed for people that weren't healed before. And so it's easy for me to take that circumstance and say, okay, I'm not going to pray for healing anymore because it didn't happen. But when we choose to believe our circumstances over what the Bible says, that's when we start to see that stuff.
Yeah.
But when we wake up every day and we say, like, regardless of what just happened the last time, and we say, I'm going to choose to believe what it says here, and we go out and do it, that's when we start to see that breakthrough and see people healed. And see people, radically transformed like that.
Nice. Do you have a 2 cents on that?
Well, yeah, I just think that for believers like out there too, like a lot of the times, like I've noticed even for myself sometimes when I'm praying for healing, it's like I'm not even really thinking about like what I'm saying. I'm just like so excited, like like look at me, like I'm about I'm glorifying myself. I'm not glorifying God.
Right.
And you really like when you're praying for healing, you have to humble yourself, and it will not work unless you say in Jesus' name. Yeah. And even if it doesn't work, like maybe there's something going on in your heart, or maybe there's something going on in their heart.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, what do you do to prepare people when they come into a DTS and everything like that? Because obviously, I've heard all the things about, you travel, some people perform miracles, you have to live on $900 a month if you're on staff, and you got to raise all this support from people. What do you do as far as mental preparation and training?
It's what's it that comedy says 90% prayer and 10% asking people.
Okay.
Like really, prayer is how I got my support.
Okay.
Because I pretty much I wanted to join staff January 1st. That's when I wanted to join staff. But just honest with you, I was not faithful in fundraising. I wasn't faithful in it. I was lazy. I would sit around, not do anything, and then it was like I was sitting there playing video games, and it's like God just kicked me right in the butt and was like, "What are you doing? You have a call in your life, and I gave it to you, and I want you to go, and make disciples, and I want you to go." And I was just like, like you're right, like wow, like I've been sitting here for almost like a month, like not doing anything about it. About raising funds, and then just like I said before, I said okay to God again, and I gave him that, and I put my effort in, and he came through, and I got my support and more.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yeah, and I would say for anyone like thinking about doing discipleship training school, and
so worth it.
It's definitely worth it, but I would say I don't really know there's a way to mentally prepare for it.
Yeah.
It was nothing what I expected, and that's what I hear from most people. But it's one of those things where it's like, really the only thing I would say is it's so worth giving up 5 months of your life to have a relationship with Jesus. And I'm not saying like you have to do YWAM to have a relationship with Jesus.
Right.
But if you're in that place where if you feel like that's what God's calling you, it's definitely worth giving up that time to pursue Him for 5 months.
Yeah, no doubt. So in the trainings and everything, what are the classes and studies that everybody does before they go out into the world?
Yeah, it's the schedule. Basically, it's I would say kind of similar to college. I actually never went to college, but from what I've heard,
I went for 2 semesters and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I did 1 semester and dropped out.
So you might know better, like if it's how similar it is.
Yeah. So in college you have a schedule, and
you got your hours.
Yeah, you got your hours. Yeah, and it's just like that. You have a binder that you have, and it has dates when certain things are. You have when some assignments are due. They're written down.
Can you fail a training?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But most of it you don't fail from like, oh, you didn't do your homework and so you get an F.
Right.
But you more so fail when you decide I don't really want to pursue the Lord anymore. Okay. And so we've had people come through and they just didn't really have their heart in it, I guess I'd say. And then partway through their desire for it left. And so most of the time it comes from like that. It's a mutual like, hey, maybe this isn't for you. Yeah. But it's not. You're not going to fail. But like, if you're not good at school, I personally was awful at school.
Yeah.
I slept pretty much the whole time. So coming here, I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And also like just this whole thing of like, there's so many different backgrounds,
Yeah.
you know, that come through YWAM. You have some that like have been Christians their whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
You have some that have been Christians the day they get to DTS, which is short for Discipleship Training School. I don't know if we covered that,
Right.
but yeah. So you come in and every day it's just pursuing God. You'll have a class where the each speaker has about a week. So Monday through Friday, you'll have a class where that speaker will have will speak on whatever they came for, like let's say the Father, Heart of God, which is actually what they're going through this week. And so every day this week they have that class about that. But then like today, every Thursday we do like local ministry, which is where we send out teams throughout Louisville, and so you actually get an opportunity to go into the city and we work with homeless people, we work with kids, and basically our goal is just to go out and love people and share the gospel. And so that's Thursday, and then throughout the week it's a lot of class stuff, but there's actually not a ton of homework because we really just want to focus on learning what it looks like to have a relationship with God, spending time with Him and that stuff. And it's not really about like anybody can fake their way through answering a question on a piece of paper.
Okay.
But it's really hard to fake your way through walking through a relationship with Jesus.
Okay. Cool. So, YWAM rules and regulations, standards, things like that. What are those?
So that's one of those things where every base it's going to look different.
Okay.
Every base is run by some they're independently run. So YWAM Louisville, it's one of those things where when they put the rules in place, it's one of those things that they pray about. At the start of when they start a base, and how can a student get the most out of their time here? And so one of those things which I thought was really stupid when I was in my discipleship training school was you have to be in the house by 10:30 on the weekday.
Oh, you guys have a curfew?
Not as staff.
As staff,
Okay.
no, but as a student, yeah. And
yeah. Billy, make sure I get you out of here on time.
But yeah, the weekend is 12 o'clock, and so that's one of those things that it's really easy to look at and be like why? What's the point? But then when you look at it, you have kids coming in that like us, where we did drugs,
Right.
and so us being out in downtown Louisville at 1 o'clock in the morning is probably not the greatest thing when we just started following Jesus.
Yeah, that's true.
Fresh, just
And also, if you're staying out till 2 in the morning, you're gonna be so tired, like going through your days, where you're not gonna get anything out of it.
It's like you're just kind of asking for trouble, like no matter what you're doing, if you're just always staying out till 2 a.m. and you have to do stuff in the morning and in the day, like no matter what your job is, it's like, bro, you got no business being out until 2 a.m.
My mom would always tell me nothing good happens after 11 o'clock.
Oh,
That's what
true.
my mom would always tell me.
My mom says for midnight for me,
Yeah.
but so y'all, well, the students have curfew. Is there any behavior rules, anything like that? Any just
For students or
for students? Yeah, for students.
Yeah, there's
I mean, it's obviously don't do drugs. Obviously, don't
Yeah, there's a no drinking policy
Okay.
for the students, and that's one of those things where you have some people coming in believing that any amount of alcohol is wrong.
Right.
Some that say, hey, in moderation, it's okay. But for students, it's one of those things that just like with the curfew, where it's some of those students that are coming in were alcoholics or struggle with that.
Yeah.
So it's easier for your discipleship training school to say, hey, let's just not for this season.
Yeah, because that's not why you're here.
And it's one of those things where it's if you can't stop drinking for 5 months, then that's a different issue in and of itself.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
What about staffers? Are y'all allowed to have a drink?
Yeah.
Just not in front of students.
Okay.
You can't drink with students, but if me and Brian wanted to go out and have a beer, we could do
Yeah.
Cool. Relationships. What well, I know for if whenever I was on a mission trip or whenever, I mean, it's just like being in the workplace as well. You got to be professional about these things, but you guys are living together
Yeah.
for at least the students anyway, for 5 months,
Yeah.
right? So what are those regulations?
It's one of those things where there's actually no set like policy.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that we actually talk to the school about and leave it up to them. And so the discipleship training school, that's one of those things that they cover and they'll talk to you about. And it's one where I would say they prefer, not pursuing relationships.
Yeah.
If you're pursuing a relationship, it can take away from, that in that season, it can take away from, what God wants to do and your pursuit of Him.
Because that's not why you're there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But especially, after discipleship training school, like on staff, like we actually, have quite a few staff, couples now. Yeah. There's actually going to be a wedding here in a couple weeks. And so that's one of those things that, when you're on staff, you're finding quite a few people who are after the same thing. You're both pursuing the Lord, and so you're going to see those couples happen. But
I would imagine something like that brings people together.
Yeah. But in your school, it's I would say more suggested not to, just because we want your focus to be on the Lord.
Okay, I feel that. What are some of the challenges that you guys have to go through with students? Just like challenges like with yourself, and then challenges with students.
Yeah, I mean, part of it's relationships.
Yeah.
So even if they agree, like, hey, let's not pursue relationships. Some way along the line, there's an attraction that forms, and then it's about guiding them through how to walk that out properly and how to walk that out in a biblical way.
Okay.
And then you have stuff like making your own food, because no one wants to be in a house full of guys, where everyone is messy, doesn't wash their clothes, and everything's thrown all over the place. So we have a standard, of having the houses clean and stuff like that. And so that's part of the challenge. Is some people came in and their mom always cleaned their room, and so they're not. You
find out who those are pretty quickly, right? Yeah.
And my mom never cleaned my room, but I never cleaned my room either.
Yeah.
So it took me actually probably 2 of the 3 years I've been here to figure out, hey, I got to keep my room clean. Yeah. So I was getting talked to quite a bit about that. But it's not. We try and like, even with like rules and stuff, we try not to make it about like a rule. Okay, your room has to be clean, just do it. But like, what's the heart behind it?
Yeah.
And the verse like, do everything unto God. A clean room, you can clean your room for the Lord. Stuff like that. And so it's really like, what's the heart behind it? That's what we try and get out of the students. That's what we try and show them in those things like cleaning your room, and those things like pursuing relationships, in a healthy way, and just really like putting the Lord first in everything we do.
Okay. Do you, Isaac? Do you find any challenges like with yourself, like as a worship leader, or just like as somebody on staff? Like now that you started, what day specifically?
Actually, today was my first day.
I almost can't even ask you this question.
But I've been leading worship at the base.
Okay.
My DTS and my SOD, I was leading.
Okay, cool. So, well then, let's talk about your time as a student then. What were the challenges that you faced as a student, like right when you got going, and then in your time overseas?
So, when I first started, it was extremely hard for me, because it wasn't quite that I was going through the withdrawals, because I wasn't on like really hard stuff.
Right.
Um,
But you were still used to just
yeah, I was
having
used
that
to like
freedom to do
like
that.
at least like weed. I would smoke like weed like every day, like
Yeah.
nonstop, like, all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, the beginning was very, very difficult for me, and I just wanted to leave. And there was it didn't help me very much that there was a guy in my DTS that went through the same situation as me, and he was in the same situation as me.
Oh,
So
man.
we were kind of like, buddies, like,
Yeah.
like, screw this.
Like, hey, you used to do that?
Yeah,
So did
so did I.
Hey,
Like,
knuckles, man.
Yeah, but he ended up actually having to leave before we left.
Seriously?
Which really, made me sad.
Because he couldn't button it down.
Well,
or anything?
when he, I think when he went home for what we call it deputation, when we raise funds for outreaches and stuff.
Yep.
That's what we call deputation. And while he was home, he messed up.
Yep.
And couldn't come back.
So what? Not to cut you off here real quick, but before I forget this question, what's y'all's process of just parting ways with somebody?
Yeah,
I have to tell you, like, I heard a weird story, and I don't think it's every situation, but it was like, I'll tell you this, and then you tell me, you can correct me. There was a girl that I knew that was in one of the bases out west, and her and her ex had actually ended up at the same base, and they just messed up, and they were out later than they should have, and they were messing around and whatnot. Well, she felt bad about it. She told the staff, and the staff was like, we're going to pray about this. And then a couple days later, they were like, hey, we decided we're gonna part ways with you here, but you got to tell the congregation essentially why. And then she said that she had told them all, stood up in front of the whole room and told them all, and then they were all like, we forgive you, like, all at once, and then she left. So that was like a story.
She left.
Yeah, she left. Yeah, that's what she said. Is like, she just she stayed on base, but she didn't participate, and she essentially just worked in the city that she was at until the time was done.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, I don't want to say obviously you can tell me what the situations are, but
I think that's reasonable. But the reason why my friend couldn't come back, it wasn't mainly because he relapsed.
Right.
It wasn't the main reason.
Yeah.
The main reason because he wasn't pursuing the Lord.
Right.
And if you're not pursuing the Lord, and we're going to take you overseas, and preach the gospel and try to bring people to the kingdom, and it's not going to work like that if you're not pursuing and you're just doing your own thing. Like, that's not going to work, and it's going to cause disunity in the team.
Okay.
And all this like that. So.
Cool. Okay.
and I would add to that, it's not a common thing, or it's not that common when
Right.
When someone messes up and we're like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work out.
Right.
But it more so comes when someone messes up and they stop caring. They stop, I've been, I've made my fair share of mistakes, and they've extended so much grace to me.
Yeah.
And I would say, a lot of the people there, they've gone through different things with that. But it typically is one of those situations where not only does someone, either relapse or, break one of those things, but it's when they do that and they stop caring, they stop trying to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all have our struggles in one form or another.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's understandable.
Yeah, like when I went for a deputation, I also messed up.
Yeah.
And I smoked marijuana, and I felt really convicted about it.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I needed to tell somebody.
Yeah.
And I told my school leader.
Yeah.
And I repented to her and asked for forgiveness, and she was very good with it. And she was like, I see that you really are trying to chase the Lord. It's just that you messed up one time.
Yeah.
But
I not to get off topic, I like have just my personal opinions about marijuana and stuff. I'm not saying that it's all right or anything by any means,
Yeah.
but I've always thought about like it would be so funny if like we got a time machine and we went back to like Jerusalem
Yeah.
and everybody was smoking weed or something. And we're all like, wait, what? And they're like, we're like, what are you doing? And be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like it's like it was never like a thing back then, and they
Yeah.
just never mentioned that they
Yeah.
did it. Like, but I'm never gonna say I'll never say they smoked weed.
Yeah.
It's just that's always been like that's not out there. I
Yeah.
guess I don't know, but yeah, no, but what you're saying before though, it is like a matter of the heart and stuff,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like you.
Well, because it specifically says do not do drugs. Do
Right.
not do that, and that is disobeying. Like a rule.
Right.
That's a sin.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah. So going overseas and even in a new city that you guys don't live in, do you ever fall into any intense situations just as far as safety goes? Because of course, you guys are in charge of several youths'
Yeah.
lives and everything. Is there any situations that you have to deal with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had some experiences on outreach.
You look like the kind of guy that they're going to look to bounce somebody.
Absolutely. I'm the guy that steps in between situations. But we had a situation with actually in my school with a student and a homeless guy where he got mad that we gave him some money and we didn't give him enough apparently. But we actually didn't have any more. Like we showed him we don't have any more money. He got mad and he got in my friend's face, and I had to step in between there. We've had situations like a guy like came up and tried to grab one of the girls, but that's one of those where we never travel alone,
Right.
and especially I'll always make sure there's at least 2 to 3 people. So that was one of those situations where we tried to grab her, but we were all right there and able to stop it. But yeah, like just situations like that you run into. I actually had a situation where I stopped some homeless people from getting arrested on outreach. I was talking to him, and the cop came up and started accusing him of something.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just sensed it in my spirit, like I'm just supposed to like stand up for him. And he was just talking down on him, and he accused him of theft. And I asked him, "Do you have any evidence?"
Yeah.
And we were in a different country, so I don't even know if their rules are the same as ours.
Oh yeah.
But I just decided, hey, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And started, questioning him about it, and eventually he left. And I turned around, and all the homeless people were crying. And I shared the gospel with them, and all 3 of them ended up getting saved because that was the first time anyone ever stood up for them. And so, I wouldn't suggest going to another country and standing between a cop and somebody else, but when the word tells you to do something, sometimes you got to do it. So, every time it tells you to do something, you do it. But, that was one of those situations where it was unique, but it happens.
As a student, did you ever like overseas find yourself in a situation where you're like, I just need to be careful?
Yeah, for sure. When I was in Kurdistan, it's a full-out Muslim country.
The stands tend to be hard neighborhoods from what I
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah. So we stayed in a little village called Jalalabad, and
That would be kind of cool to say like that you're from there. Jalalabad.
Jalalabad.
That's pretty dope.
The coolest. Yeah, it was always cool to say. But they had like in the village they had little like military type bases with
Military, like military of the country, or like was it militia?
Like
or,
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Like what it
Were
was,
there uniforms?
but they were. It's like somewhere some weren't, and
Okay.
like so maybe some of them weren't. But I'm just saying I saw people walking on the streets like with AKs and like stuff like that, and like
How was that
that's
at
like
first?
movie. That's like movie type stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
Jeez.
And we would all see it. And we're just like, like walk, like, you know, we're all white as I don't know what,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
very American, like, you know.
You're just like, sorry, I'm here.
Yeah, but the thing that our outreach leader told us is that to try to stay like undercover. You know what I mean? Like, don't be all American, like
Low
loud.
profile.
Don't be all loud, like did you see I go like laughing and stuff. Like you can't be like that because they'll draw attention, and then maybe there's AKs will be pointed at. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at night, like when I was in Kurdistan, I heard, you know, gunshots and
Jeez.
you know, like
Were y'all allowed to go outside at night? Were y'all ever out at night?
No, not usually. No. Now sometimes, yeah, sometimes I would go like a corner store or something at night, but we didn't do ministry at night. No.
Okay. Where did you? What was the curfew policies overseas?
That's one of those things that just depends on
The place.
the place. We, you know, depending where you go, there were certain places where we would do some stuff at night.
Okay.
And so, you know, you wouldn't get home until later. But that's one of those things where, you know, you typically don't go out on your own.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, you know, you're pretty much mostly with the team. Except for like we have an off day every week. So you can go out with a friend, you know. Typically you go to the mall because it's the most American thing there. Find some American food.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe watch a movie, do stuff like that. But yeah, typically you're with your team.
Okay.
But usually, when you get home from like you're doing all your daily adventures, you're gonna want to go to bed.
Yeah.
Because your like legs hurt, you're worn out.
It's a lot of walking.
Yeah, a lot of walking.
Is so, you know, obviously being out there is 100 miles an hour. Is it 100 miles an hour at the base camps as well? As far as just
No,
days
it's not,
go?
it's not near as intense.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, so dangerous situations and spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
Oh yes, important.
What? Just, you know what? I'll just open the floor up for spiritual warfare. Y'all just give me your 2 cents on it. Tell me what you've experienced with it. Just go for it.
Can I actually share one more story about dangerous situation?
Yes. Yeah.
So this didn't actually happen with our base, but I heard a story about a YWAM base. They were somewhere in the Middle East, and there was an ISIS camp that heard about them and heard that they believe in Jesus, and they said that you're going to come back and you're gonna share with us about your God, and if we don't like what we have to hear, we're going to kill you. And so they went back, they prayed about it, because, you know, typically, like YWAM, if there's a country where, you know, there's a lot of danger, we typically don't go there.
Yeah.
You know, you have 18-year-olds, you know, that we're not trying to, you know, get anybody killed.
Right.
But so they prayed about it, and each one of them felt like they were supposed to go back. So they went back and they shared the gospel with this group of ISIS militia, and the leader actually ended up getting saved, and every single one of them did the same thing, and they laid down their guns and got saved. And so that group ended up staying there for a few weeks and just shared the Bible with them, taught them, what it looks like to follow Jesus. So that's one of those situations where it's not like common, but like I heard that, and it made me question: is that something I would do?
That's wild.
Yeah, that's wild.
Did you hear about the 26-year-old that went to the North Sentinel Island?
Yeah,
I did not like how the media portrayed that,
yeah.
because they didn't even talk about how. Well, some media outlets did not talk about how he was doing it for a mission.
Mm-hmm.
They said a 26-year-old illegally went to the North Sentinel Island in the India West Bay and got killed.
Yeah.
They didn't say why.
Yeah.
Which was just crazy to me. But still, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's one of those things where it's always hard to hear, and I mean, I think of the Bible, like the disciples.
Yeah.
I think most of them were killed for their faith, and that was one of those things where he was being obedient to God, and I don't know if maybe there was different steps he could have taken for more safety. I'm not 100% sure.
Do you see where he wrote in his journal beforehand?
I did not know.
He like wrote a letter to his family. And he was like, if I get killed, like, don't be upset.
Really? Yeah.
He's like, he knew exactly what he was going into.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where he's so in love with God that he was ready to lay down his life if that's what it took to reach those people. And so, it's one of those things you never like to hear about it.
Yeah.
People dying for something like that. But it also increases my faith, and I have a lot of respect for someone that's willing to lay down their life for Jesus.
Yeah.
And it really makes you question, like, is that something you're willing to do for Jesus? The Bible talks about it, and it's easy to sit here and say, oh yeah, I definitely do that. But him writing that shows that he had that idea going in, and he was still willing to go through with it, and so that just really like shows you like the amount of faith he had, and it really makes you question like, is that something you'd actually be willing to do, not just say, but actually follow through with it?
Well, that's something that almost nobody here takes into account, because it's like if a pastor like Kyle Eideman or Matt Chandler or John Piper or whoever, like if they said to their entire congregation, like, listen, there's a chance, not saying it would happen, but there's a chance that you could get your head cut off for this. You ready to get baptized? But who knows? Who knows how many people would get up and walk out? But that astounds me though, because it's like people don't. I don't know. I don't know if they're just like, they're like, that would literally never happen. And just so the audience understands from me as well, I'm not saying it's going to happen to everybody here if you stay in your calm neighborhood. Like, who knows what the reality of America would be in 30 years, right? But at the same time, the further east you go, the more in danger your life becomes as a Christian, right?
Yeah.
The most places in Africa, if you're a Christian woman, you'll get your lips cut off. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, people are like, well, that would never happen to me. Okay, look, you're coming into this building on a weekly basis. You're free to do so. You're free to also not come in and still register yourself as a Christian here, and no consequences would be happening to you right now. But the reality of the world is that that's on the table.
Yeah.
And I think me personally, if people walked around with that realization in mind, they would carry themselves a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But
also just throwing in there, like, just so you guys know, we at our base, we've never had anyone get killed on outreach or
good. Yeah, that's a good little disclaimer there too.
That's one of those things where we one of our focuses is safety, but also we do go to those hard countries where that is a reality.
Yeah.
Where there are people dying for their faith.
Yeah.
And to see people living every day a life where they have the possibility of getting killed for what they believe, and yet being here in the safety that we have in America with that religious freedom, to me that makes me want to go share that all more.
Yeah.
To see the faith that they have while I'm sitting in comfort, it's like there's something wrong with that.
I feel that. Yeah. So changing gears back into spiritual warfare and everything. We'll start with you, Isaac, as a student. When you first got in there, did you see any spiritual warfare within the base, and did you see any in the outreach when you traveled?
Yeah, and at the base, spiritual warfare would mean just like every single night, like the devil would just like interrogate, like just like aggravate the mess out of me.
Yeah.
And like I knew it was demonic, but I'd make it go away. Just say the name of Jesus and it would go away.
Is there anything that you dealt with significantly as a student that you knew like this is spiritual warfare and this would not be happening if I was back home in my own bed?
Well, as a kid, I suffered from sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And I would see something in my room, and when I would make eye contact with it, I couldn't move. And so, like when I tell you, like I felt that demonic whatever.
That like makes me like just yeah.
But it's real. It's
yeah.
The devil and demons and God and angels, they're both real.
Yeah.
Like real as can be.
Yeah.
And it got a lot better throughout the weeks.
Yeah.
I just got new friends.
Yeah.
And it was just I was having a great time, and it was awesome. Like my life was just like completely changed.
Yeah.
Even before outreach,
yeah.
It was completely changed.
You see spiritual warfare overseas?
Overseas, yeah, definitely. Well, what we usually do as a team when we go YWAM, we pray. We get together and pray as a team and try to figure out what the spiritual strongholds are for that area.
Yeah.
And in Cyprus, the spiritual stronghold all of us guys were feeling was lust.
Oh yeah.
Lust was a huge thing because it was kind of like Cyprus where we were staying in Larnaca. It was like a very retro, hippie, European type thing. People making out everywhere, literally having sex on a bench.
No doubt.
Really, in a park.
No doubt. Because in Sicily, all of the beaches were just nude optional.
Really?
And I'll tell you this, though, it wasn't really that bad for me and the team because anybody that chose to be nude was kind of in the backstory of their life. You know what I mean? Gravity had taken its toll at this point. And so it wasn't that bad for us there, but I know what you mean, though. Yeah,
but and I'd have dreams that I couldn't even think of that were just so grotesque and nasty, and it wasn't only me. It was having dreams like that, and and there's actually in that city there was a goddess of love or something, and people had statues of her and all that kind of stuff. And I believe that's what it was. Maybe it was that person.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I think every place you go to on outreach, there's going to be different kinds of strongholds, and some of them are just as simple as poverty.
Yeah.
Where that place there's just that poverty, whether it's a mentality or whatever it is, where you see generations of people just stuck in that place, and some of them are is a stronghold of being fatherless, where there's generations, like in South Africa, where most of the people in those slums there was no father present, and so that's one of those things, and you have places like India where it's just death.
Yeah.
You just look around and there's just so much death, and that's one of those things that you feel you can tangibly feel it.
I've been getting pictures from a friend that's there, and there's garbage.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And people will poop on the street, and it's just it's one of those things you feel that heaviness, that death, and that's one of those things with spiritual warfare where prayer is huge. That's one of the biggest things. It's prayer and just spending time with God. And the more time you spend with Him, the more time you spend in prayer. I think that gives you a lot of authority over those situations.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's cool. Well, let me do some rapid fire questions here for the both of you, and then we'll wrap it up from there.
Okay? Sounds good.
All right. So, when did your relationship with Jesus begin? And then you know what? You can take as long of an answer as you want. It doesn't have to be a quick
My relationship began when I started my DPS.
Okay. Cool. What about you?
Definitely. Well, my relationship started with Jesus when it was like the third day of my discipleship training school, and it was Andy who was teaching. Andy is our base leader.
Yeah.
And he was teaching on surrender.
Okay.
And I never surrendered to the Lord. Like my church never really spoke on like that very much.
Yeah.
My church was just like happy feel type church, you know.
Yeah.
But when I heard about surrender, like I just like my tears started flowing, and I was just like, I feel something like I want to do that, whatever it is. I know what surrender means, so I want to do it. Like, and that's when it happened, and like my life was just radically changed since then.
Cool. What is y'all's favorite book in the Bible or Scripture? And it doesn't have to be just one. It can definitely be more than one.
I would say my favorite scripture is "For while we were all sinners, Christ died for us."
Nice.
And my favorite book, probably Hebrews. I really love how it digs into the Old Covenant versus the New Covenant and the difference between them and what the cross actually did for us.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, for me, my favorite verse is probably Romans 8:1. It says, "There is no condemnation for those who are in Jesus." Because
Nice.
you know, if you know Jesus, you don't have condemnation. Convictions. It's different. And I also like Romans 12.
Yeah.
And it talks about how, in view of God's mercy, present yourself as a living sacrifice. And yeah, I try my hardest to live by that. You know, by that verse. That's probably my favorite book is probably Ephesians.
Okay.
Because I love how it just talks about the love of God and Paul's a good dude.
Cool.
Yeah, he is.
What is y'all's favorite book? Like ever? Just outside of the Bible.
I'm gonna keep it spiritual here.
Okay.
I'm actually reading it right now, but it's called Back to the Gospel.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be honest, the name of the author, I can't think of it right now. But it's a really powerful book. Kind of like what I was talking about with Hebrews, where it really digs into what did the cross actually do for us.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where it's so much deeper than I think a lot of Christians, ever realize.
Yeah.
And you go to church and you hear your whole life like, yeah, Jesus died on the cross for you, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But most of them, like, it's hard to explain like what did that death actually do for you.
Yeah.
So that book really digs into that and dissects that, and it's been incredible.
Okay, cool. What about you?
My favorite book is probably I read it in my S1D in my secondary school, and it's called Daring to Live on the Edge.
Okay.
It's by Lord Cunningham, the founder of Youth with a Mission.
Okay.
Yeah, and it basically just talks about how like he has so many stories, just incredible stories of like how God has provided for him and how many times God has saved him. And I remember when he was in a really bad accident, and he was on a hill or going up like a mountain or going down, and he flipped his vehicle several times, and his wife flew out of the car. And like she wasn't breathing or anything, and in that moment, you're desperate, and you're like, what am I gonna do? My car's totaled. I'm in the middle of nowhere. My wife's like not breathing. His phone was like busted and cracked, and both of their phones were done. And like he just put his hand like on his wife's chest and just started praying and praying and praying, and it was like 5 minutes. And then she took like a huge breath, like it was like gas. Yeah. And then like they had they found a phone, and it wasn't like theirs, and they found it like in the back of the totaled car, and called 911. I mean, it's just amazing, like the stories that you should really read it.
Okay.
It's a good book.
Cool. What are y'all's favorite movie or top 3 movies?
Ooh. All right.
Okay, I can't keep it Christian here. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Oh.
Let's see, top 3.
I mean, mine's my favorite movie is Forrest Gump.
Huh.
I mean, that's a good movie.
Not a big fan of that one.
Really?
Honestly, yeah.
All right, you can leave.
Let's see, number 3 would probably be Lord of the Rings, the series.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really, really like Lord
Of course.
Old classical movie that I really liked, I always watched when I was a kid, was Wizard of Oz. I really, really liked the Wizard of Oz.
That was the first. That was the first movie to have color in it. Yep.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, the line, and the line is just, he always got me so weak.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's the? Yeah, he does the. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, man, it's funny. Let's see.
No, yeah, dude. People went wild for that movie though when they first saw it at the movie theaters. When they saw the color, like they said, that was like one of the craziest reactions a theater like ever had.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
It was like second to some movie. So it was like the first time that they could actually like capture a movie. They recorded. They took a camera and they set it right next to a railroad track, and they had a oncoming train, like go right next to it. It looks like it's gonna go right by you, but everyone, for seeing it for the first time ever, freaked out, and everyone started running out of the theater because they thought the train was gonna come through the screen.
Wow.
They had never seen anything like it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Let's see. And then number 1 would probably have to be. Does it have to be a movie? Can it be a series?
No, it could be a series, a television show.
I mean, I don't. You watch Netflix?
Yeah, dude.
Have you seen the Punisher series?
Yes,
Dude, I love. That's
Yeah.
probably like my hands down favorite.
Dude, that's it. Like,
it's a really good story.
out of all the Marvel TV shows, that one's the best.
Definitely, yeah.
That one, then Daredevil,
Daredevil's good too.
then Luke Cage, and then the rest can just get out.
Yeah, trash.
Like, dude,
I watched like the first episode of Jessica Jones. I was like, I can't watch this.
no disrespect to Jessica Jones, but the plot was just not good.
Yeah.
And then freaking Iron Fist, and it was just terrible. It was just terrible. I'm such a critic of the superhero
Yeah,
stuff.
man,
Like
Punisher.
I feel that though.
Really.
Did you see the movie? Like the movie?
The past one.
Yeah. With
Yeah, I didn't-
John Travolta as the bad guy and everything.
Yeah, I didn't like it as much as the series at all.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. What about you?
I would say TV show. You got Prison Break.
Did you cry at the end of it? Because I did.
You know, I'm going to be honest. There was a few tears.
Yeah.
Tears. But you know, they got another season coming out.
I know.
I don't know what their plan is with that. You know, but really love that TV show. Movie Hacksaw Ridge.
Okay.
Which I guess you could say is Christian.
It is Christian. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
really,
Andrew Garfield. He plays this guy that refuses to touch it. It's a real story. He refuses to touch a gun, but he wants to fight in World War II.
yeah.
But he's like, I'm just gonna try to save as many people as I can. That's all. And he got the Medal of Honor for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How many people did he save?
I want to say like 75.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was insane.
That's based on a true story.
Yeah, true story. And it was just really well like acted.
He got some awards for that.
Yeah,
And actually, Andrew Garfield became a Christian after that movie.
dude, that's what I heard.
Because he
That's what I
said when
heard.
he studied, his character and everything, he was so moved by the
Yeah.
story. He was like, this guy he's real.
That's what I heard. Yeah, dude, that's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to say, I get two series here: The Lord of the Rings, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and then also the Bourne series.
Bourne series?
Yeah.
I have not seen the most recent one.
Really,
It's
Yeah.
good.
that's,
I need to go see it.
That's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
Is it real?
Yeah.
It's really good.
It was a lot better than the fourth one with.
Jeremy Renner?
Yeah, yeah.
They kind of veered off.
It
Yeah.
kind of seemed like a desperate act of trying to keep the series going. I mean, it wasn't awful, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, overall, one of my favorite series.
Okay. Cool.
And then anything Denzel related.
Denzel Washington.
Yeah, Training Day.
Oh,
Okay.
snap.
Okay.
Gonna throw that one out there.
Yeah.
Man on Fire.
Yes. He was singing that one, and then The Equalizer. What was the one that it was one of my favorite ones. Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting it?
Safe House?
No. But he's a bad dude in this movie.
I don't even know who played a bad guy.
No, not like a bad guy. He's just a
Bad.
I think
bad.
it's either like He Got Game or something else, but he just American Gangster.
Oh,
okay.
I've
Dude,
heard
yeah.
that. I don't think I've seen that.
That's like I love that movie because I mean he just
He's good at anything he does.
yeah he is
really
he really
good.
is absolutely. So you guys have obviously traveled to a bunch of places. If you could travel anywhere else in the world that you haven't been to yet, where would you go?
Oh my gosh.
Could be top 3.
Well, one, Jamaica,
I feel that.
Dude, just the thought of getting hot
I feel
on the
that,
beach.
Yeah.
You not gonna
Break it
lie,
down, Mom.
you'd sing out like a sore throat.
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
Who is this white boy going up?
Yeah.
That's
Dude,
cool though.
Yeah. Oh, man, Egypt. Oh,
Okay.
Oh, top one, Israel.
Okay.
Israel, yeah. Yeah, just the thought of walking where Jesus walked and seeing that stuff.
That's cool.
Dude,
I want to do that too.
yeah.
There's I keep seeing on social media, there's this company that's offering trips out there. I don't know too much about it, but it's been popping up on my feed. So I'm going to check that out. It's like a summer thing. You can go for like 2 weeks.
Right.
And they just ask that you like take the best possible photos that you can. And then like that's like part of like your job. Like when they send you out there. So it's like go take pictures.
Dude, let's go.
Yeah, no, for real. Though. In all seriousness,
Yeah.
I'll talk to you more about it after. But yeah, dude, Israel is definitely that's in my top list too.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you?
Well, to be honest with you, the 2 past places I've been to, and we also went to Turkey for like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Like Istanbul.
Yeah.
But Northern Cyprus
Mm-hmm.
was it's definitely the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Seriously.
It's like turquoise water, with mountains, and like rocks and all that.
I think it's amazing when we live in places like we do. We go to somewhere like that. We're like, wow, this really exists.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But probably, I really want to go. I want to go to South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd love to go to Zambia because I got family out there.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
Seriously.
Yeah, I mean not like from Zambia, but
Right.
And I'll say South Africa, that was the most beautiful place I've ever been.
Yeah,
Have you been to Cape Town?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was there for 2 weeks.
Jeez.
But we were actually also in a city called Jeffreys Bay, which is actually where they hold some of the surfing tournaments. Really cool surfing spot, but they actually say
I heard
that
it's just riddled with great white sharks. Though.
there are.
Okay.
Yeah. But they say out there in Jeffreys Bay is the most beautiful sunsets you'll ever see. And I would have to say it's true.
Okay. Cool. Jeffrey's back.
Jeffreys Bay, yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Bucket list. All right, cool. What is the best piece of advice that you guys have ever received in your life? Something that you live by.
Man.
I'm just kidding.
I know what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it.
We'll think it out for a minute. It's totally cool.
I'll let you go first.
No, it's okay.
Actually, here, let me ask this question, and you keep that question in the back of your head. Who are the top 3 people in your life that you look up to?
I go back quick. My mom is probably number 1.
Shout out to your mom.
shout out moms. Yeah, because she's been through so much.
Yeah, man.
With my dad's situation, and
Moms don't get enough credit.
yeah, really, and she raised 3 kids all by herself. And
Jeez.
on top of that, she has, I got a half brother. He basically like hates my mom, but my mom like loves him. And it's really like sad because my mom has a really, really good heart.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love my mom. I won't talk about it when I start crying.
Oh.
Yeah, but I'd say there's my uncle Bernie.
Okay.
He was like kind of like a father figure to me.
Mom's brother.
Yeah, my mom's brother. Yeah,
In Jesus. There you go.
Man, I'd say for me, my pastor back home.
Okay.
He's one of those guys like he'll go out of his way for me, and always looked up to him. He's so selfless. Like I just actually called him yesterday because I'm going home this weekend to see my family, and called him yesterday. Told him I'm coming home, and asked him if I could share. And I was expecting like take 5 minutes. And he said, actually, could you share a message? And gave me 15 minutes. And, a lot of pastors don't like to give up their time on stage,
Oh, yeah.
believe it or not. And he's one of those that, even if you call him the day before, if you, got something to share, he'll let you up there.
Absolutely. That's cool.
Just really inspires me with that selflessness. Other than that, actually, the guy that led my school, he
Like your DTS? Or
yeah,
like, okay.
yeah. He led my DTS and my school ministry development.
Okay.
But I just remember, I think it was the first day of DTS. He shared his testimony to us, and he in his testimony he went through both of his schools, DTS and SOMD, and he said he left unchanged, and it wasn't until he came back on staff that he really changed his life.
Oh wow.
And I just like when he said that, like just something stirred in my heart. Was just like I pulled him aside. And I was just like, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to be that guy that comes, goes through this DTS and leaves, the same person I was when I came. And he really just took me under his wing, and just shared his life with me and walked with me through the hard things, that I experienced, in the schools, on outreach and stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Were you guys able to think of any advice that you heard?
Yeah, but I mean, I thought
It doesn't have to be
I
a
thought
sentence.
better,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, this is what I like live by.
Yeah.
It doesn't nothing can separate me from the love of God, and another thing is really understanding what Jesus did on the cross.
Yeah.
And I think about it as like, God is the Father,
Yeah.
and then He sent His own Son to die. Like,
Yeah.
could you imagine having one son
Right.
and then sending him to get beaten horribly,
Yeah.
and then hung on a cross?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how much God loves us.
Yeah.
He sent His only Son to die.
Yeah.
And once you understand that, you're gonna want to follow Him, because it's just amazing how much He really loves us.
I would say biggest piece of advice. I don't know if it's like biggest piece of advice or like just one of my biggest takeaways was someone. I honestly can't even remember who it was. But someone was just sharing about you'll never regret giving something up for the Lord. Whether that's a career, whether that's time, and they said when you give something up for the Lord, you're always going to get something back greater than what you gave up. And just like in my testimony about giving up my career and what I wanted to do and make money, I make a lot less money than I was going to make, and yet I'm so much happier doing what I do than I ever was working.
What is y'all's favorite music?
Cool.
All right, let's do this. Favorite music, favorite band or singer, favorite song.
All right, go for it.
All right.
Let's hear it, worship pastor.
Sorry, it's not worship music. I mean, I dig it. I dig worship music, and there is a lot of nice, worship music out there now. Like that, I'm as a musician, I like groove. You know what I mean? I like,
I feel
funky
that.
type of, beats.
Do you like soul? Like
yeah,
you
I
like
love
blues
soul.
or
I love
like
soul. Soul's probably, I say like R&B and soul is like probably my favorite. But also I like heavy metal too.
Nice.
I'm a heavy metal guy.
Do you know North Flame?
Yeah, I do.
Quantum Flux.
See, I grew up listening to, the hymnals and stuff, growing up in church.
Yeah, man.
And then I got into metal, because he's actually my brother-in-law now, but we used to,
We used to go hard.
Okay. We listened to like metal music, and that's how I got into metal music, and then like started hanging out with other people, really like rap, got into rap, and I can't freestyle, but I like it.
I tell this to everybody that starts to freestyle with me, like in the same room. I'm like, listen, I appreciate what you're doing, but I'll just go ahead and say this: I promise you, your girlfriend wants you to stop doing that and go get a job. Like, I promise you.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you say favorite artist or favorite?
Yeah, favorite artist or band or whatever.
My favorite artist. See, I know this is going to come across as like, nonchalant or whatever, but I've been following Drake ever since he was, mixtapes. You know what I'm saying? When he came out with mixtapes way back in like 2005, I was listening to him, and like, he's gotten a little poppy, which I don't really like, but his older stuff is like fire.
But I mean, it's still at the same time, if nobody's willing to recognize like what he has accomplished, like even from the song "Successful," I remember hearing that. And I was like, he's gonna do something.
He's up there, man. Like he's probably number one, like making money at least. Like
He's a baller.
Grammys and platinums, and all that stuff.
Yeah. No.
Favorite song, man. It's gotta be Easy Like Sunday Morning.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Did you have you always liked that song, or did you?
Ever since I was little, I love that song. It's just such a smooth song.
It
just puts you in a good mood. Like
you want to sing to it?
Yeah.
Too.
Oh, I got to every time.
Yeah. I feel like you know that song.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows it.
You'd be surprised.
Really?
You'd be,
oh
my friend literally asked me the other day if I knew "Into the Mistake" by Van Morrison. Do y'all know who that is? I'm gonna be mad if y'all don't know who that
I'm
is.
gonna be straight honest with you. I don't know that.
Daggone it! Do you know who Van Morrison is?
Van Morrison?
Daggone it! No. Van Morrison is the man. No, y'all. Oh no. I'm real dumb
how old is he?
He's an old dude, but he did jazz, dude. I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
See, I was never.
I never got super into jazz.
He did jazz and soul, and like I'll show you his music after this, and I'll turn you on it. You'll like it. I can tell you'll like it. But
I'll pass on
no, okay, yeah. But yeah, so Drake, and then your song is Easy Like Sunday Morning. What about you?
I before I really started following the Lord, really loved rap. Still do. If I want Christian rap, really like NF. He keeps it real. But before Jesus, Eminem. Really liked him.
Used to go hard to Eminem in middle school.
Yeah.
He just gets you so hyped because he's so angry. Like,
Yeah.
I remember I was at somebody's. So when I was young, I had a babysitter, and she took me over to her boyfriend's house, and her boyfriend had MTV on at all times.
Oh yeah.
And that was when the music video "Without Me"
I mean,
Eminem came out.
yeah.
That literally, like, that could have been a psychedelic drug because it literally changed the way I thought. It was like, there's more than like to life.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
It'll expand your view for sure.
yeah, it expanded my view. for
Yeah.
sure.
If I had to go, so Christian band for sure, Upper Room.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They're a church, but their worship band is phenomenal. And that's definitely my go-to with that. Song wise, if I'm going with worship, So Will I.
Oh, I feel that.
Yeah.
My cousin, he studies at Southern Seminary. He says that is the most scripturally accurate song
Yeah.
that he's ever listened to.
Yeah.
It's like a poem almost. Like,
Yeah,
like
it
it
is.
was meant to be a poem.
Yes.
Also, going back to secular, Khalid.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I will vibe the Khalid.
He
I love
has
that.
so much vibe in his music.
Yes.
Where you can just throw it on. That's one of those things that, like, when you're doing something, you can just throw that on and
Yes.
and you can just go.
In all seriousness, I would argue every one of his songs are hits.
Yeah.
Oh,
In
yeah.
American Teen, I was actually just looking at that today. American Teen, like
Mhm.
the amount of hits in that album is just phenomenal. Like,
But it's like his sound and his style.
Yeah.
Like he
It's
could-
different.
He's so, like, he's just like the definition of vibe.
Yeah.
That's for real.
Jeez. Yeah, no, you're right, dude.
Yeah.
I feel that. What about favorite song?
favorite song, actually gonna stick.
You said so loud, dude.
Yeah,
Well,
that's right.
Yeah, but
Oh, second room.
yeah, like
I didn't say
favorite worship
No,
is heathen. No, no, it's good. Favorite worship, So Will I. But if I'm going secular, definitely something by Khalid. There's a few that come to mind. One is Shot Down by and another one is Cold Blooded.
Yeah. Do you like Angels?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that one.
it is a good song.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, if you can give the audience a little piece of advice or something about yourself that you would want them to know, what would you say?
Yeah. I would say, honestly, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different ways you could go in life. And I don't know if it's gonna sound cliche or not, but kind of like that advice I received earlier about just surrender. Like, you're not gonna regret giving something to the Lord. And I would definitely say with your life, when you put the Lord first in everything you do, there's definitely so much joy in that.
Yeah.
That's something that I've really been kind of relearning lately. Is just a lot of times even after pursuing the Lord for 3 years, like, I can get in that mindset of like, okay, I have to read my Bible, I have to spend time with them, and the joy can kind of leave that. But when you really get back to the basics, like, Christianity is so simple.
Right.
And it's really just about walking in a relationship with God. And when you take time to get away with Him, when you take time to dig into the Word, not out of like, oh, I have to, but like when you realize that the God of the universe wants to spend time with you.
Because you got to make sure not to turn it into a checklist.
Yeah, for sure. And because you can do it as a checklist, but where's that actually get you?
Exactly.
But when you do it out of desire, like out of relationship, when you do it because, like, man, the God that, like, when you think about the fact that God created the sun, the moon, the stars, everything you see that's beautiful, and yet He left heaven and came down to earth for us.
Yeah.
And when you see that, like, you cannot help but run after Him. And so I would just say, like, dude, like, if God's tugging on your heart, you're not going to regret giving them everything.
Yeah.
You will regret giving them some stuff.
Yeah.
If you just give up part and you're like, I'll give you this, but I'm going to hang on to this, you're going to regret that later.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to find full fulfillment. But when you really just give them everything, and you say, like, the Bible calls us to die to ourselves. It says, pick up your cross and follow it. And so, right there, that verse, I guess, is the advice I give. Pick up your cross and follow it.
Okay. What about you, Brother Nate?
Yeah, for me, it's almost kind of ties in with what Brian was saying. But one thing is the most important thing for me is surrender isn't just like a one-time thing. You know, like the first time I surrendered to the Lord, it was amazing, and I felt just like awesome and like amazing, like like kind of like what they call like a Jesus high or whatever.
Yeah.
But like it's like a everyday thing for me.
I feel that.
Like when I wake up, if when I have my time with Jesus, in the morning, like I'll get on my knees and I surrender and say like God, this is your day, not mine.
Yeah.
And I'm here to serve, and like you put me on this earth to serve, and like if you look at Jesus, Jesus of course was a leader, but like
right.
What did he do to his disciples? He washed their feet. They didn't wash his.
Yeah.
And like I believe that's one of the most like powerful things in like the Bible, and like just seeing that Jesus came to serve, not to lead.
Yeah, man. Well, that's cool. Well, guys, I think this has been super educational, super enlightening. I think anybody that listens to this is going to learn a great deal from you guys and about YWAM and stuff. I really do appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely. You guys, audience members, if you guys want to learn more about YWAM, where can they go to learn?
The website is ywamlouisville.org, and there we actually have a phone number, 502-423-0339, where you can call if you have any questions. We always have people there to answer anything you got.
Fantastic. I will post that information below when I release the episode. You guys, thanks for listening, and this was Life on a Mission.